video asking a very important question. What if Godzilla -1 met legendary Godzilla? Like, would it be a battle? Would it be a fight? I don't really know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments.
Godzilla
and like I said, the video
is
by Goji Center.
Destructive Gojira
now, to be honest with you,
a literal
I love
weapon of
Godzilla
mass destruction,
-1. Loved it.
Anything that
but if they met,
but what if legendary
I feel like Godzilla -1 would fire at him.
What would this guy think about -1?
Which wouldn't be good.
And most importantly, would this heat ray hurt its
because you gotta think, bro. Godzilla -1 is like, look, hold up, we gotta go back. I was just about to say this. He's literally less than half of his size. My boy is kind of tiny compared to legendary Godzilla. I mean, this would not be a battle. It would not. Well, I mean, let me know your opinions. Who do you think would win if they fought?
What would happen if these two existed in the same
I would say legendary
and
Godzilla.
See if these
Come
two
on now.
would eventually get along.
Because his atomic breath,
to not miss
Godzilla
-1
-1
on your favorite kaiju.
Godzilla -1's atomic breath is very good.
Godzilla meets -1.
But legendary's good with nukes. You know, he gets more powerful.
To begin, we'll start
Remember
by
when they
stating
charged
that
him
this
with that
episode
nuke?
is not necessarily a face-off,
okay,
but
here we
rather a what-if scenario where both Gojiras will have the opportunity to interact with each other in an alternate universe.
Interesting.
In this scenario,
I like that.
we'll stick with the events that occurred in the film Godzilla
By the way, hit that
-1,
subscribe button if you haven't yet. Appreciate
Ginza
you.
And more or less marked his territory.
And hit that like button.
Very special
shaped like a
form
thumb.
of radioactive footprint.
Let's go.
A nuke explosion. The creation of
he's got
these
that
new
nuke,
weapons and technological advances that brought forth this amount of destruction took place at the end of World War II and improved upon during the Cold War era. In a previous episode, we discussed the serious effects that are caused by just one of these heat ray blasts. But to go a little more
the effects
in-depth,
are crazy.
note that upon exploding,
very
this
bad for most things.
cloud happens to be setting up the perfect conditions
but not legendary
to send
Godzilla.
atomic particles
not
up
him.
to the atmosphere. These particles spread out and fall back down in the form of dust, or in many cases as
and that black
rain-looking
thing.
Anything or anyone that makes contact with this is subject
we saw that
to
at the end
radioactive
of
poisoning.
Godzilla -1
This
with
stuff
that one girl.
also renders any
Lady,
food,
close your
water,
mouth!
or ground inadequate for use or consumption. People
Why
that
did
do
she want
not
to
wash this stuff away or are
that was
exposed
odd.
to the surrounding
Very
area where
odd
the
of her.
nuke explodes will suffer from ionizing radiation, causing mutations in their genetics or cancer. There's more. The debris and cloud that rises from the ground will block any sunlight for a long time period. Any surviving vegetation will now be deprived of adequate sunlight, causing much of the surrounding flora to eventually
That's true.
die
I didn't think of that one.
So why does all this matter in this scenario? If it hasn't become
those
clear
explosions,
already,
man,
just
for the
one
budget
of
that they
these
had,
heat rays
amazing.
fired by this Godzilla has some serious consequences in the environment. Nothing good comes out of this. In our scenario, -1 fires one heat ray, and legendary just so happens to be close enough to
look how
detect a
tiny he is,
radioactive
bro.
spike.
Comparatively,
Immediately, legendary turns from his normal patrolling route and heads straight to Ginza. This confrontation is about to begin.
Let's go.
While Godzilla makes his way to Ginza, let's quickly discuss what this Godzilla might do.
What if they were the same size, though? What do you think?
Monsterverse Godzilla, unlike its counterpart in -1, has a different philosophy when it comes to inflicting destruction.
That's right.
Legendary's
he doesn't just go out to kill, you know.
Is more or less to make sure there is environmental stability and to take out any threats that might cause global catastrophe.
Yep.
There are many examples of this, such as when Godzilla prevented this Muto pair from reproducing. Had they reproduced, then we would be looking at a
I definitely like
-1's
atomic breath better, and it's not even close.
He killed
but,
Muto Prime, preventing another Muto pair to be produced. In King of the Monsters, this guy was
Thermo
after
G.
Ghidorah, who was not only
Thermo,
a
man.
living Category 6
He's such a
hurricane,
savage.
but also the one responsible for summoning many titans to wake up and ruin the planet. In Godzilla Dominion, the G-Man prevented Amulek from taking over a territory overseen by Behemoth.
Dominion,
and
isn't
in the act,
that the
saved
comic
one
or
of
something?
the world's largest rainforests from being contaminated by this pestilent titan. So, as
he
we
takes
can
out
see,
anything
Legendary
bad, bro.
Goji
And
seems to have
-1.
a big issue with titans that destroy the environment
He's
for
a savage.
no good reason. To be fair, this Godzilla has caused a lot of collateral damage.
He definitely has.
In the name of the greater good, but never goes out and destroys things for no reason.
Right, if he's
Unless,
getting fired
of course,
on,
those
then,
things attack him.
Exactly.
So now that we learned what living forms Godzilla off, we can now go back to -1, who is admiring his work of art, which just so happens to be the type of stuff
what a savage, bro.
Legendary, who actually just arrived just in time to see the mess -1
Let me see the
made.
size.
What exactly
Look at the
happens
comparison.
isn't known for sure, but we'd guess their first encounter would go a little like this.
Oh, what happens?
From Godzilla's point of view, the focal point of this scene would obviously be the big, ginormous mushroom cloud that towers in the sky.
Truth.
Black tar like liquid rain as Godzilla gazes upon the leveled city and the
It
mass
wouldn't do
corpses
anything
left
bad to
behind
legendary
by the
Godzilla,
rubble.
you know.
It's evident that whatever life used to be here is now terminated, and this land is no longer suitable for life for many years.
Yeah.
Now, logically,
Yep.
Godzilla will try to figure out who did this. And to his surprise, he turns and sees what seems
A
to be a
miniature
smaller
version of
member
him.
of his own species. Surprise, surprise. Now, admittedly, we'd like to think that Legendary would be a bit surprised after finding out
It's almost
that
like
this
Kong when he saw,
colossal
like, the
mushroom cloud and
smaller
vast amount of destruction was
Scar
caused
King
by this
in that
little
trailer,
fella
you know?
right here. Don't get us wrong, -1 is huge.
He is huge,
compared
but
to
not even
Legendary,
close
this
to
dude
half.
is less than half the height of this Godzilla.
Oh, yeah, look, 160
Legendary
compared to
is now thinking
390.
a lot here while staring at this little guy.
He's like 70
Someone
feet
like
more
him, an alpha who is
than half.
responsible for establishing order on the planet, may now think to do the following. One option would be to get the little Goji to submit and perhaps call him up later when a blast like this is required.
I don't know if
since
he's gonna
killing him
submit,
right
though.
Here would be a waste of atomic power. After
I
all,
love
the
that
side
atomic
effects
breath,
happening in Ginza are in the end beneficial to Legendary since this guy feeds on radiation. It's not out of character for the G-Man to spare malevolent
laugh, by the way.
Titans. He's done this before many times as long as they submit.
They gotta bow,
and
bro.
even
They
gone
gotta
as far as
submit. He'll let
rescuing
you
malevolent
live.
Titans from humans, as was the case with Titanus Nikika. But will the G-Man spare -1?
That scene right there was
Maybe
terrifying.
That's if this
His
one
face?
is cooperative, but there's a flip side
It was
to
scary.
this. Upon encountering -1 for the first time, Godzilla will not necessarily be sure that this guy is fully grown, meaning that in the G-Man's point of view, this guy could still be a juvenile and has more room to grow and get larger.
So you gotta get rid of him while
potentially
he's
growing to become
tiny.
more powerful than himself.
See, that's what I'm saying. What
turning
if they were the same
-1
size?
Into a serious threat, one that might
He
threaten
would be a
his
serious
status as
threat,
alpha
for sure.
in the future. So, what would Legendary
Imagine,
Godzilla do
dude.
in this case? Well, it's become clear at this point that Legendary will very
That would be
likely
insane.
hate -1 automatically, since the cooperation of this fella seems very unlikely after witnessing that there was no real reason to destroy this place. There are
He's
no
slow,
other
way
kaiju
slower
around
than
that were fighting
Legendary. Yeah, we can say
-1.
that.
There were no real pre-existing threats here that
I feel
mess
like
with the
Legendary
planet,
would have
therefore
every
nullifying
upper
any
hand.
good excuse
Speed,
-1
agility,
had for blowing up this place.
power?
As a result, Godzilla will now determine that this dude is a bully and nothing else in his
And he'd
point
have to
of
get
view.
rid of him.
Now this leads us to how this Godzilla would fare
You done,
in
son.
battle. Here, you have to
That
set
seemed
all
terrifying.
bias aside regarding who's your
didn't
favorite
show his face,
Godzilla
though.
and stick with the facts. And that is that Legendary Godzilla will have the edge in most, if not all, physical categories.
Exactly.
If you need more detail, then we're talking about some combat attributes such as weight, speed, agility, and most
What did I just say?
definitely melee
Literally
weaponry.
that.
Since the tail alone of this Godzilla would be enough to
Oh,
send
that would
-1
boot -1.
flying.
He
If
would
it
be
was the very
screwed.
tip of the tail with the dorsal spikes, Legendary would technically almost be able to cut this dude in half, given the centrifugal
I feel like
force.
-1 is
So,
too
to
slow,
save us
you know,
some time,
for a
there
fight
is
with a big guy.
absolutely no way -1 would be able to hold its ground against a melee assault from Legendary. And the best part here is that they both know this. Legendary Godzilla would literally be looking at -1 with the
He's fast
"We
with the
both
tail
know
whip."
you don't want this fight look.
Exactly.
So obviously -1
don't want that.
would resort to its more powerful weapon, the Heat Ray, which is a blue
See, I just feel like that
atomic ray
wouldn't
of
do
energy
much
that
because of
condenses into an impacted
Godzilla,
target,
Legendary
causing
Godzilla.
a blast similar to an atomic bomb. Or as Legendary
he's good
Godzilla
with atomic
calls
bombs.
it, food. That's
Food.
right. In the past,
He basically
Legendary
eats
Godzilla
that.
has served these
Eats
delicious
atomic bombs for breakfast.
delicacies every time with favorable side effects, often returning as more robust, stronger, more energetic, agile, etc. That is
boy's
because
quick.
Titans like him make use of these high levels of radiation and come out stronger than before, regardless of the effects of the insane
Remember
power
when
of the
they,
pressure from
like,
the
brought him
blast.
back to life
Humanity
almost
has been
with that
surprised
nuke?
by this feat already after the nuclear test in Castle Bravo when
Not
they
that.
realized they didn't
They
kill
tried
the
to kill him
G-Man
with that.
after blowing up a nuke in his face. In King of the Monsters, this was
This
later
right here,
used as
exactly.
a way to juice him up. So there's absolutely no reason to think that if
He was
with a
dying.
Heat Ray, Legendary Godzilla wouldn't come out benefiting from this.
Save my
Does
boy.
the blast itself affect Godzilla? Maybe, but it most definitely isn't enough to handicap him.
Nah.
After Serizawa detonated the warhead in Godzilla's lair, the previously injured G-Man rose rapidly, displaying his full atomic prowess. So, in our scenario, Godzilla would initially run up to -1, attempting to finish him off.
He'd hit him with the
melee
atomic
attacks,
breath, but
knowing that he's about
it might do
to
a little
get
bit,
stumped,
but it's got to
-1
charge again.
charges
You know
up
what I'm
his
saying?
heat ray and fires on legendary Goji.
It would be
After
over
the
with.
smoke clears away.
He'd either
and
bow
to
down or get
-1's
stepped on.
terror, legendary Goji emerges from the cloud dust, gradually becoming even more radioactive.
Ooh.
After witnessing that his most powerful attack did not work, he now has a decision to make.
Bow or
Submit
die, basically.
Or face certain death. So it's likely that if this Godzilla wants to stay alive, he'll submit. However, legendary Godzilla may have different ideas.
What if he does? He's got to demolish him, you know what I'm saying? What if he kept growing?
Grow up larger.
Gotta take him out.
If legendary lets him live, he risks this fella inflicting even more destruction, potentially killing millions of life forms.
Exactly.
A fun detail
You
is
gotta
found
finish
in
the job.
Godzilla Dominion, where he knew that this old nuclear warhead would explode if he allowed Scylla to access it. So he knows pretty well the negative effects
Scylla.
of this power. So it's likely that Godzilla would choose to end -1. Godzilla's atomic breath works differently than -1's. Not necessarily condensing into an atomic bomb, but still packed with enough heat and destructive power to kill it if it's exposed
I still definitely like -1's atomic breath better.
Melee-wise, Godzilla would tear -1 to
Oh, boy's
shreds,
bodied!
but
He dropped
risking
his Kool-Aid.
regeneration after he's all torn up.
R.I.P. to my boy.
Legendary would likely finish it with the atomic blast. But
he can
is
still
just
regenerate,
one possibility.
you know?
Do you
He's
think
not even
Legendary
dead.
would spare -1 in hopes that he doesn't become
We saw
trigger
that at the
happy
end of the movie,
again?
too.
Or do you think -1 signed the line and sealed his fate by firing at Legendary Goji?
I mean, he definitely sealed his fate, but let's be real. -1's not beating legendary. Unless we get a Godzilla -2 and he becomes beefy. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching with me. I love ya. Goodbye.